I'm back from a week off where I bought some vinyls, graduated, and got tonsillitis. I'm better now and have antibiotics for the tonsillitis, not for being a graduate, but what I didn't have, nor did anyone else at Rock Paper Shotgun, was a review copy of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So until we've played enough of it to form an opinion, here are some of the best entries from the vast library of Star Wars games that already exist, which you can play on PC, from some classic oldies to some classic slightly less oldies. Let's see how they hold up, and if they're still worth going back to. Get your comments in now about all the games that we missed, but on your way down there hit subscribe if you haven't already. There's a vast library of Star Wars posters made of metal on Displate, who we've partnered up with to open up our own store page full of collections of our favourite ones. There's this one Star Wars one I like with funky colours and Guerra del Stelle written on it, which is Italian for War of the Stars. You can give it a look along with all of the other posters in each of our collections by clicking the link in the description. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was the first Star Wars game I ever played, and I love it to bits. You can choose between all of everyone's professional pod racing fan favourites. Gasgano, Elan Mac, Anakin Skywalker, and my personal fave, snaggly alligator dog man good boy Dud Bolt, who will occasionally make a gurgly growling noise while you browse for new pod parts in Watto's junkyard between races. Episode 1 Racer gets a bit overwhelmed and panicked by external USB devices and thinks they're all controllers, so it kept crashing for me until I unplugged my headset and popped it back in again after booting the game. When scaled up to 1440p, the cutscenes become tiny and the UI is a bit pixelated, but overall it holds up really well. With an Xbox One controller, the pod racing is slick and responsive, and I had to force myself to stop playing it all day. I thought it would be a really satisfying conclusion to close the game once I overloaded the booster and triggered a fire in my right engine, which then exploded, the left engine dragging me along, spiralling until I crashed into a big rock. Outstanding stuff.
We have all but destroyed the Jedi Knights. The old Republic is crippled. They can do nothing.
Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is a revered RPG series, arguably most loved of the two being Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, though that entirely depends on who you ask. KOTOR 1 is BioWare's more stable and polished of the two, but much in the same way as Fallout New Vegas is a crunchier but more compellingly written counterpart to Fallout 3, Obsidian Entertainment's sequel is crunchier but more compellingly written than its predecessor. The nuanced characters and compulsive narrative, courtesy of renowned designer Chris Avallone, is well worth it for those of you who don't mind a rough around the edges game with a really good story to tell, but there might still be some hoops for you to jump through. There was a patch in 2015 that made the game work better on PC, and we have a guide on the Rock Paper Shotgun site for the additional work that's linked in the description. And there's also a restored content mod, also linked, that adds some of the cut and unfinished stuff back into the game. The new Star Wars Battlefront 2 is wank. I haven't actually played it, but at this point I don't think I need to in order to know that it's wank, with how comprehensively the games industry has slammed its heavy simplification to a fault and its overly aggressive implementation of loot boxes that fostered a pay-to-win environment before being altered. The old Star Wars Battlefront 2, colon and all, is properly good though, and the GOG Galaxy update in 2017 that brought back easy-to-access multiplayer with crossplay between it and Steam users means it's still playable in both single and multiplayer. It's unfortunate we never got Pandemic Studios' vision of Battlefront 3 with planet battle to ship battle transitions, but what their Battlefront 2 offers is still pretty funky. The ground combat is actually quite tight, and space battles still let you hop out of your X-Wing or TIE fighter on opposing enemy crafts to pester pilots with blaster fire and capture control points. The pompous, dramatic exclamations of the Imperial announcer will never not be funny.
The flag is under Imperial control.
Especially after that GOG Galaxy multiplayer fix, there aren't really any hoops for you to jump through when it comes to getting Star Wars Battlefront 2 to work. You just click play and you can play. Especially useful to know if, like me, long-winded tinkering in the file directories of old games can get stressful and off-putting. The only weird snag is that the resolution you set only applies in-game, not to the menus. So if you scale things up and it seems to do nothing, don't worry, it has. The Force Unleashed is often remembered as a dark and edgy Sith power fantasy, and while it definitely is that, it actually holds up pretty well. You are Starkiller, the son of a Jedi hiding out in Kashyyyk after Order 66 was carried out. Pinched by Darth Vader during the really satisfying opening scene where you play the Dark Lord of the Sith as he yeets about Wookiees with his Force powers and smashes apart barricades with his angst. Indeed, there's lots of yeeting in The Force Unleashed. Starkiller's Force powers are some of the best bits of the game. You can chuck droids into windows and let the vacuum of space suck everything out before blast shields seal the breach, pluck TIE fighters out the sky and crash them down onto a gaggle of rebel soldiers, or just lift people up, float them over the edge of a platform and drop them, watching them tumble down to the depths below. There's also that bit later on in the game, which I didn't reach when I dipped my toes back in recently, where you use the Force to crash a Star Destroyer into the surface of a planet. While this caused a lot of controversy in the Star Wars community, because how the f*** can Mr. Starkiller Man do that when Sheev Palpatine aged about 700 years because he shot a bit of electricity out of his hands, it was suitably dramatic and badass. I had a few friends who were crazy into Star Wars Republic Commando back in the day. Having given it a go now, I can see why. It's a first-person shooter that puts you in the shiny white plastic boots of Delta 38, leader of Clone Trooper Commando Group Delta Squad, consisting of 3 other numbered men who are physically identical to you because you're all clones, but who each have their own favourite method of murdering aliens. You need to give them orders to go there, blast that, bump on this, if any of you are to survive. My favourite bit is when you get a splash of Geonosian blood or robot oil on your visor, a little windscreen wiper made of lasers turns on and cleans it up for you. For me, it's what makes Republic Commando a must-try. The LEGO games, at least before they burned themselves out with a LEGO game for literally everything, have always had an approachable formula. You jump around a lot, collect LEGO pieces and hold down a button to reconstruct whatever is needed to progress, optionally in co-op. The LEGO Star Wars games are no different, though it throws in a little spaceship combat too. The complete saga was named a bit preemptively because what you get is all 3 episodes of the original Star Wars and all 3 prequels to play with. The LEGO Star Wars games also have a great sense of humour, poking fun at the films with obvious affection. Like that bit in the opening cutscene of Episode 1 where the pilots of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's ship are suspended mid-air after it gets blasted and then dropped to the ground, falling into bits unceremoniously upon impact.
It is all as I have foreseen.
There's still a lot of room for a properly fantastic Star Wars RTS, but until it comes along, Empire at War works just fine. It's a very standard affair for an RTS, but it's incredibly Star Warsy. There are AT-ATs and super battle droids and even great big hulking rancors that gobble people up. It's adored especially by deep lore Star Wars fans for its Forces of Corruption expansion pack, which played around a lot with the expanded universe, since expunged from time by Disney. It also functions, which is always a big plus. Some of the other Star Wars RTS games like Force Commander and Galactic Battle also function, but we'd recommend Empire at War over them. Star Wars Rogue Squadron, with an added 3D bit on the end for the PC release, is pulpy arcade X-Wing fun. The menus are extra, with wholly unnecessary animations and Star Warsy sound effects every time you push a button or scroll through a list of options. The game itself is also pretty good. Simplistic, but in a way that works in its favour. You fly about, shoot down some baddies, and one of the bonus levels is the Death Star trench run, which is loads of fun. I kept getting this weird camera thing where it'd endlessly zoom out in each level until I crashed and died once, but you're probably going to crash and die at least once anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Transports requesting permission to pass through this sector.
Set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, Star Wars TIE Fighter is a pretty hefty space combat sim where you play an unnamed Imperial fighter pilot. It's got a bit of infamy in that people who love it absolutely love it for its extensive TIE pilot simulation and its pro-Imperial portrayal of the galaxy, and people who haven't played it before find it impenetrable. It might be because I don't have a flight stick yet and was working off of the keyboard and an Xbox controller, but I find myself regularly having panic attacks when I pushed a button and something with no immediate feedback happened, and when I failed missions by either not knowing what to do or just crashing into things. If you know how to play TIE Fighter though, or if you want to dedicate some time to getting into it, I have one piece of advice for you. When Windows 10 came along, something a bit funky happened to TIE Fighter and its Rebel pilot counterpart X-Wing, where trying to start a mission makes the game panic and just close itself. If you go into the game's file directory, delete the ddraw.dll file, and then use Steam to verify the integrity of the game's files, this should work, or at least it worked for me. This is with the hardware accelerated 1998 edition of the game though. The 1995 MS-DOS emulated version works just fine. Considering it's an MS-DOS game, Star Wars Dark Forces is shockingly easy to get working. The Steam version of the game has a DOS emulator built in, so when you launch it, it'll just start running without any issues. You'll also be in for a massive treat. Dark Forces is a galactic space opera version of Doom. My capture software even got confused and put the footage I got of it in a folder labelled Wolfenstein 3D. Just like old Doom, Dark Forces is still really fun. A lot of effort went into making it feel like a proper Star Wars game. The sound effects are right, the plot is there, and all of the blasters look and feel like the real deal. It's also less than a $5, which I think is definitely worth it. There's this bit I particularly enjoyed where you enter a cantina with all the power cut, so it's pitch black beside some bits of glow-in-the-dark neon trim. When you fire your blaster, the rounds light up the room in a flash like out of a badass action movie, and you have to dispatch some stormtroopers by aiming at them in the strobes of light between the dark. It's fantastic. There are so many Star Wars games, but there's plenty of variety, so it doesn't feel like there are too many Star Wars games. These are just a few that I either used to enjoy or just heard good things about. There's a whole galaxy's worth more out there for you to go back and have a big gulp of, like some vibrant blue milk. You can check out another list on the RPS site with a few more thrown in, linked in the description, but if you decide to give any of the ones in this video a go, I hope you found my impressions and words of advice helpful. If you enjoyed this video and would like to support the channel, please do click the link in the description to check out our Displate store. Displate made these really nice metal posters with a magnetic mounting system that means you don't need to drill into your wall and burst a pipe, spraying water out all over your RGB lights or whatever it is gamers have in their rooms. There are over 500,000 designs, and we've even gone and picked each of our favourites to go in the little collections on our page on the store, so if you buy any of those ones, then a bit of money will come back to us, and we can use that money to buy food and repair all of our plumbing from before Displate entered our lives. They also plant a tree for every poster sold, which means there will be more air for all of us to breathe. Lovely stuff. If you found this little slice of Star Wars games useful and or enjoyable, please do like the video and subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun for more videos like it. Thanks very much for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.